Simon begged and screamed for help, but instead, Ben gouged both of his eyes out with his thumbs.
What the whoa! Too far, man. Stabbing him 12 times is one thing, but gouging his eyes out? Dude, it's not June anymore. We're in August. Wait, I was born in June. Does that make me gay? It all makes sense.
Suspicion of murder. You just anything to me? How many defense don't mention when questioned something fled on court?
What do you mean?
Anything you do say give me evidence.
This is Benjamin Atkins and his girlfriend Debbie Pereira, both of whom were arrested for their part in murdering
Oh, God.
49-year-old Simon.
You ever heard of skincare? Geology. Bionic. Fuck, what's my code? Bionic 100? Is that my code? Yeah, Bionic 100. Geology. Get it today.
Shot in their death trap of a home, all for the sake of a mere £30 or $40 US. Believe it or not, some officers wanted—
I don't understand how, like, Europeans can carry around 40 pounds of money, you know? Like, what happens when there's something that's like 1,000 pounds? That would suck, having to lug all that money there.
To give them the benefit of the doubt and assume they were innocent. However, after a brisk investigation at their property, they quickly realized that Simon had met a bleak and terrible end within their four walls. So, who are Ben and Debbie? What surveillance footage helped them lead to their arrest? And why on earth was Simon murdered, all for the sake of £30? Welcome back to
30
Coffee House
pounds of
Crime
what?
Folks. My name is Adrian, and today
30
we're
pounds
traveling
of
to
what?
England's southern coastline to look at a gruesome story that happened only last year. Now, it's not that often that we come across a case that seems to be so senseless and brutal. You'll see what I mean in a short while. But these two really did go to prison for a mere few bucks. By the way, I post true crime, strange and chilling stories here on a weekly basis, so if you do like that sort of thing, please consider subscribing, it really does help me out. Thank you, I appreciate you. And now, with all of that said, please grab yourself a coffee and let's caffeinate while we investigate. This is the case
40
of
pounds
Simon
of tea?
Shotton.
I mean, I'd kill for 40 pounds of tea. That's a lot. Probably a lot of money. Thank you, Cruise Style.
In today's
for the
case,
tier 1.
we'll be making the most of the British summer by heading down to the southern coast of England. It is an area brimming with history, spanning recent scars from 2 world wars right through to the Jurassic era. However, if you're more of the urban type, then why not lose yourself in the eclectic—
You know what would look really good right here? An interstate with like a McDonald's, a Burger King, a Taco Bell. You know, Americanize up this shit,
city
you
of
know?
Plymouth, explore the major port city of Portsmouth, or alternatively, go hunting for the world's best video editor in
Dude, not a McDonald's in sight. What is this?
Portsmouth, or alternatively, go hunting
Not a fast food joint? Like, where the hell's Arby's? What am I supposed to eat
for
around
the
here?
world's best video editor in Brighton and Hove. Hi, Callum. Quite honestly, there is so much to explore in all of these beautiful coastal cities. However, today, we're focusing on another one that hasn't been mentioned yet, and that is Bournemouth. So, what can I say about Bournemouth?
Put a
Well,
Walmart in
it's
the
a
middle.
seaside resort town in the heart of Dorset, and with a population of just under 200,000 residents, it's not a small settlement by any means either. With its mild climate, sandy beaches, amusement parks, and streets filled with restaurants and entertainment venues, it is appreciated
Not a still no McDonald's.
by
What
all
is
who
this?
visit. However, despite being a
Yeah,
peaceful
where's the Bass Pro Shop pyramid?
beach town where many come to relax, Bournemouth was thrust into the spotlight last summer under some pretty horrific circumstances. It was on August the 26th, 2023, in the Boscombe Beach area of East Bournemouth, that families shied away from their busy schedules to enjoy the British summer sun. Dozens made their way down to the beach via its zigzag trail of manor steps, seeking comfort in the gentle coastal breeze. One of those
subtitles?
tourists
Yeah.
decided to take a break under one of the trees nearby. That is when, suddenly, 2 wrapped-up bundles tumbled down the cliff beside her, and, as you can imagine, this was highly extraordinary. Curious about what was inside, but also not too worried, she decided to take a look and check them out. But as soon as she unwrapped the first package, she was hit with the terrible stench of decay, and what she saw inside was an indiscernible mess. Trusting her instincts, she
Dude, that would suck. Like, imagine just minding your own business, chilling out, and all of a sudden a body rolls up next to you.
He decided to call the police, who responded by quickly cordoning off the area. And after investigating the tumbled packages, they found that what they contained were the partial remains of a human body. More precisely, a pair of severed legs.
Ew.
The discovery thoroughly baffled Bournemouth police. But outside of the victim's suggested height and shoe size, the legs alone did not provide much more information. As we all know, human remains often come with the chance to recover a person's DNA, and if the person has a criminal record, well, they then might be in the police database. Fortunately, after only 5 days of analysis, forensic officers and detectives matched this DNA to a man named Simon Shotton, who at the time was a 43-year-old who resided in the local area. So, what do we know about Simon? Well, the authorities knew him as somewhat of a drifter, and one who struggled to get by, and often lived wherever he could find shelter. Simon had recently served
Damn, why is it always homeless people, dude? Didn't we watch a recent one where a dude just like mercilessly killed a homeless person just because they were there?
a sentence for drug possession
It's always
with
the
intent
homeless
to
people,
supply,
dude.
but was later released on license and monitored by the probation service. Of course, this eventually assisting with his identification. Before the grim discovery, Simon was seen squatting in the rundown Mon Bijou Hotel found on Manor Road. The security guard who spotted him, named Lee Guagualeni, described him as somewhat of a decent guy. In fact, they'd even exchanged phone numbers so that Simon could avoid the out-of-bounds areas. He didn't want to be a burden on society. It's just that
And
at the
he's a
time,
nice
he
guy.
didn't
Come
fit in very
on.
well. It was noted that just a few weeks before his
At
remains
least,
were found,
can he at least be a
Simon
piece
told
of
Lee
shit
that
so I
he'd
don't
moved
feel
to
as
a new
bad?
address on Aylesbury Road, and that apparently things were looking better. However, that would be the last time that anyone heard from him.
Like, why don't we ever get one of these and then just be like, yeah, he used to be a real piece of shit, you know? Like, it's always the victims, like a good person, always nice, you know, and then they die horrifically. Why not let's start out as like, yeah, this guy used to be a giant piece of shit, all right? A huge asshole, right? Not saying he deserved to die, but kind of sucked.
Unfortunately, Simon seemed to struggle from substance abuse from a very young age, but despite his rough childhood and academic struggles, he did turn out to be a rather hard worker as he grew older. Moving into his adulthood, he would take agency, warehouse, and fairground work wherever he could, and would routinely keep in touch with his family, mainly through his
Crappy
mother.
people
To add
have
to that,
plot
he
armor.
engaged in several relationships with women, many of which would eventually result in children. Now, he did do his best to keep in touch with all of them, but put quite simply, his issues with alcohol and drugs made him a bad father to be around.
Oh, okay, wait, we're pulling it back. We're pulling it back. Bad father.
That's because his addictions led to a rather chaotic and unstable lifestyle, where he owed money to many people, moved in and out of housing quite regularly, and could never hold down a job. Eventually,
There it
general
is.
labor was no longer good enough, and he found himself working for the same dealers who fueled his addictions, creating a very vicious cycle. And so, feeling ashamed and powerless to all of it, he decided to shield his family and friends away from his ever-worsening situation, isolating himself.
Dude, it sucks because I still feel bad for the kid. That doesn't even make him a bad guy. God damn it. You're trying to look for an excuse to not like this homeless dude? I'm trying to find a silver lining where we don't feel as bad that he gets mercilessly murdered. But I still feel bad about his addiction, all right? Because it is a vicious cycle. He's an addict and he loses all of his money because he's an addict. He hates himself because he's an addict. So he does more addictive stuff and then he wants money. So he goes to his dealers to start dealing because, you know, it's a cycle. We all know that. But, you know, no one cares about that. It's normally, oh, you're a druggie. Oh, you're an alcoholic, horrible person.
Far away from their reach. Despite everything,
That
one
seems
of his
unhealthy?
sons,
Who would've
named
thought?
Wesley, remained particularly close to him, and now, at the tender age of 19, he was to be alerted of his father's death. Even though he wasn't always around, the time they spent together was special and filled with fun memories. Wesley and his dad shared a passion for everything motorsports related, whether it was cars, motorbikes, or anything else and in
It's a
between.
hog
Wesley also
cranker!
knew his dad desperately wanted to turn his life around, not just for the family, but also for himself. But these addictions can be extraordinarily difficult to curb, and it was simply too tough for Simon. His dad was used as a runner for drug gangs, controlled by the higher-ups, and working 12-hour days dealing on the streets. This would eventually lead to his arrest and then his probation, which, as we know, he vanished from soon after in early August. The police did not have much to go on. Unfortunately, all they had was a phone number and a text message that contained the name of the street that he supposedly moved to, that being Aylesbury Road. So, the next step was to cross-reference these clues and hopefully find their suspect, or maybe suspects. Meanwhile, a thorough investigation was underway to track and locate more evidence, most notably the rest of Simon Shotton's body, which remained out there waiting to be found. Not only would finding the rest of him assist in finding his killer or killers, but it would also bring peace of mind to his grieving family. Simultaneously, investigations were underway to track Simon's phone number and mobile phone, which, as we will soon come to find out, were key articles that—
Bro, why'd you have to find stock footage of a dude with untied shoes? What
key articles that—
What is that? Tie your shoes! You're holding a drink, like you're gonna fall!
Blew the case wide open.
Like, why is there even stock footage of an untied— That's awful. This is the worst part of the video. Really? That's awful. I hate it.
Now, you're probably going to be surprised by this, but it was discovered that, shortly after his death, his mobile phone had been sold at a local pawn shop named Cash Creators. I'd like to say that this is a classic rookie mistake for any criminal out there, but to be honest, you have to be seriously dumb to do this without thinking of the potential ramifications. As you can imagine, it took only relatively basic police work to progress Simon's case from here on out, as it was soon discovered that the shop had a surveillance camera, and that surveillance footage was seized and investigated. And sure enough, this footage would lead them—
Porn shop? Yeah, like sex toys, like big old dildos and shit. Chat, whenever I was sponsored by Adam and Eve, there's a butt plug that it lights up. Like, it lights up like it's a RGB butt plug. Isn't that sick? Isn't that cool? Like, imagine walking around, you know, just walking around at night and just dropping your drawers and just letting it shine out there, letting everyone see that shit, you know? Just me. I mean, don't knock it till you try it.
Them to a woman who could be seen selling Simon's phone in late August. Since she was a local, she was quite easily identified, and she was 38-year-old Debbie Pereira. It turns out that she wasn't alone while pawning the phone either, because lurking in the background, she was accompanied by a middle-aged man who was later identified as Benjamin Atkins. So, do you remember when I told you that Simon left the
Did you get
shoddy
one for free at
hotel?
that sponsor? No, they didn't let me have anything. Isn't that crazy? No anal beads, nothing.
Well, he had also told the groundskeeper the street name of his new home, and as you can probably guess already, Debbie and Ben were found to live at flat 18B.
Like, you know, every product I get sponsored by, they always want me to test it, like, on the video. But for some reason, they wouldn't let me test their product on my video that time, and I don't know why.
Found on Aylesbury Road.
Disappointing.
That was finally enough for officers to visit the couple at their home on September 1st,
silicone
2023. As a result, they were promptly arrested on suspicion of murder, all of which, as part of British standards, was caught on police body cam for the whole world to see.
Right, Debbie, time is 12 minutes past 9. You're under arrest on suspicion of murder. You don't have anything but make how many defence don't mention one question, something fled on court.
What do you mean on
anything you do say no given evidence.
What do you mean on this suspicion?
Right, just stay sat there.
What do you mean on this?
Stay where you are.
Why does she look like Michael Jackson there? She's got the hat and, like, with the insanely white face. This is Michael Jackson right here.
Stay where you are.
Stay there.
Stop, that's ignorant. That's ignorant. I didn't murder anyone, that's ignorant.
Right, you're under arrest on suspicion of murder. You do not have to say anything that may harm your defence. If you do not mention one question, something which you later on rely on in court, anything you do say may be given in evidence. So that's your risk.
At first, leading officer Neil Third had some doubts about their culpability. He did consider that maybe the couple might have merely found the mobile phone on the street and then decided to sell it. However, he couldn't have been more wrong. When officers performed a search of the property and the attached garden, they found solid proof that Debbie and Ben were in fact involved in Simon's
I swear
murder.
to God, if they're one of those murderers that like keep the head, like, dude, they're so stupid. Why keep the head? Just get rid of the evidence. Like, I would totally not keep the head. I would just get rid of everything. You know, like, it's so stupid when people keep body parts.
And that's because the very next morning,
I would be
officers
such a
discovered
good
his
murderer, I'm
dismembered
just saying.
arms wrapped up inside their shed in the garden, with this gruesome find adding another piece to the already horrific puzzle. And so, as a result, both Debbie and Ben were officially charged with murder only a few days later on September the 4th. Meanwhile, the search for the rest of Simon continued. It was 5 days after Debbie and Ben were arrested that a headless torso was discovered inside a black suitcase found in Boscombe Chine Gardens. While out on a walk, a patrol officer used his nose to follow a foul smell lingering in the air. Sadly, the stench of death is a unique and familiar scent that law enforcement eventually gets used to. And of course, this led him to the grim discovery. A post-mortem on the legs and torso revealed that although the amputations were clean, they were not conducted surgically, suggesting an amateur attempt was made to dismember Simon. However, despite all of this new evidence...
Like, what do you mean? Like, did you expect... What? Why is that even, like, obviously? Like, if someone's murdered, like, you think... It's, like, what did you think? They were just surgically removed legs or something like that? We gotta double check if this cut's pretty good, man. It's pretty good. I wonder if, like, a doctor just, you know, cut off someone's leg and just tossed it, you know? Because this is pretty good shit. Amateur, you don't fucking say. That's what I'm saying. Like, what do they think? What do they think happened? Think they took him to a doctor? It's like, hey, bro, I just killed this guy. Would you mind just slicing off these legs like perfectly? Like, I'm talking surgically done. Come on, make it good. Make it believable.
His head still seemed to be missing. The police therefore had to rely on strict interrogation tactics and more rigorous investigation to locate the rest of him. But before we continue, who precisely were Ben and Debbie? The couple which now seemed deeply entangled in this terrible story. Starting with Ben, he grew up in the northern part of Oxford with his single mother. Unfortunately, he did have a rough childhood, especially after his mum got involved with an abusive man who would later become his stepdad. Ben's only support was his grandmother, who sadly died when he was only a teenager.
Who cares? Don't humanize these people. Everyone has bad shit in their childhood. They don't kill people.
This devastated him quite dramatically and pushed him into the world of drugs during the 90s rave scene. Over the next couple of decades, he routinely cycled through periods of getting clean and then relapsing, eventually training as a carpenter before then drifting and moving around for work. It was after a violent breakup in Bristol that he then connected with Debbie Pereira through Facebook. Concerningly, the two of them took no time to protect their peace or assess each other sensibly, instead rushing into things by haphazard.
A lot of criminals barely have two brain cells to rub together. Well, like, I don't understand when people use, like, backstories of, like... Okay, by the way, I don't think, like, honestly, I think he's just filling content. Like, I'm not saying CoffeeZilla's doing it, like, not Coffee House. I think he's just filling content. I mean, that's fine. Yeah, but like whenever there's like people that like there's a murderer and then like try to like blame their past and shit like that, like with, oh, they had a bad childhood, it doesn't matter. Like people have way worse childhoods and they don't murder people. Like I hate when people blame like the bad childhood on the fact, unless there was like big red flags, you know, like there's a lot of cases where like kids are like stabbing animals when they're 6 and then the parents are like, well, just a weird kid, I guess, you know, kids will be kids, am I right, guys? And then they just ignore it until they kill someone later on in life. That's different, but
opting to move in together in Bournemouth. Although Ben claimed that he had children in the area, his larger commitment was crime. He had a long rap sheet with 16 convictions and 26 offences, showing a stained history of instability and trouble with the law. Debbie, on the other hand, had her own troubled history, one that was filled with abusive relationships with men who should have protected her.
I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to skip it. I genuinely don't care. Am I a bad person for that? Like, I do not care about hearing their backstory.
But despite Ben's history and his behavior, something unique about him drew her towards him. You know, maybe he was charming, or maybe he was funny, or maybe there was something that she could see that nobody else could. You know, that
His cock?
classic trope. Either way, it soon became evident to everyone around them that the two were damaged in a very similar way. So, could that be a blessing or a nightmarish curse? Well, with the way that this story goes, I'm sure that you can come to your own conclusion. Debbie claims that she had a horrendously tough and loveless upbringing in general for Debbie, and throughout abuse issues more aged 16 than her previous partner facility. Neither needed to get in touch with Debbie. She was ready to dive back into her addictive lifestyle with him.
Oh, they're both addicts. Oh, they both had a shitty childhood with abusive parents. Oh no, they went back and forth between being addicts and not addicts. Oh, then they killed someone.
Debbie also had a hit. However, one question remains here. Why were his remains scattered around Bournemouth? Not surprising to this story, but both Ben and Debbie were avid drug users. Not only that, but they frequented the many dealing spots where Simon worked. So, after hearing about Simon's rather unfortunate circumstances, the two then offered him a place to stay in their tent in a garden. Quite the offer there, guys. With nowhere else to go, he reluctantly accepted their offer. However, that did not come without a price. In exchange for a safe camping spot found in their garden, he would have to pay Ben and Debbie £40 or $50 worth of cocaine and heroin per day. Which to me sounds like an insanely bad ripoff. I mean,
Yeah.
doing the maths, that's like £1,500 a month. You could easily get a 2-bedroom apartment for that. Anyway, that was the last place that Simon was known to be alive before his remains were found, leaving
So they killed him because they wanted 40 pounds of cocaine, or I mean 40 pounds as in money pounds of cocaine.
Ben and Debbie in very hot water. In addition to this, both Ben and Debbie had been caught
It's probably because they had a shit childhood. Let's be real.
selling Simon's mobile phone with surveillance footage to back that up. In fact, they were even caught on camera shoplifting a crucial piece of evidence, that being a large hacksaw which can be seen in Benjamin's hand
You're just casually walking around with the hacksaw that you're gonna cut up a dude with. What the fuck?
on surveillance camera. And so, with the pair now in custody and the
Jesus.
evidence stacking up around them, it is safe to say that it was in their best interests to come clean in an effort to reduce whatever sentence they would face. This was especially pertinent on behalf of Debbie, as she would ascertain that she had little to do with the actual murder itself. Both suspects were questioned separately,
Who cares?
and when their stories matched each other
guess
and
coke
the
does
evidence
that to
was
you?
recovered from various
Maybe.
crime scenes, a gruesome scene could be painted to depict Simon's terrible
I don't think it's just coke, chat. Let's be real. I don't think it's just coke.
demise.
There's a little bit
Ben's own mobile phone records show that he was privately messaging Simon behind Debbie's back in an attempt to obtain more drugs without her knowing. To add to this, he also seemed to be blackmailing Simon by threatening to tell his probation officer about his illegal activities if he didn't comply in giving
Jesus
him more
Christ,
drugs.
man.
Tensions between the three were raised even further when Simon actively defended Debbie once Ben became irate, aggressive, and abusive towards her. She also confided in
Simon does not deserve to deal with this shit. Oh my god. He does not deserve to deal with this shit.
About their
Wow.
relationship, further swaying his own opinion of the couple. Now, I don't need to tell you that the atmosphere became excruciatingly tense between the three.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think they're just shit people. I think they're horrible people. Like, that's the thing. There are drug addicts everywhere. And they don't just, kill someone over drugs, right?
Of them, and with their close proximity in a one-bedroom flat, it forced them to live chaotically together. Honestly, at this point, I simply would have run away and lived alone in the woods. Mobile phone records, which were retrieved from all three of them, show a tense situation that came to a head on the night of August the 17th, 2023. This was when Ben was accused of stealing £30, the equivalent of $40, from Simon in order to buy more drugs.
Some people can be fine their whole lives, try a drug, and then become horrible people. Dude, not even joking. I don't know if I told you guys this story before. I had a friend who was like goody two-shoes, perfect in school, had like perfect scores, insanely smart, good at sports, extremely nice guy. Like he was such a good friend, and he would do anything to help anyone out. And then, not even joking, he smoked weed. And that sounds crazy, right? That sounds crazy that is where everything went bad, right? But some people cannot handle drugs and that means in general. And it's the weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my life, because I went to a party to pick him up one time, and everyone at the party was like asleep. Like they were all just sleeping. It was pretty late, probably like 2 or something like that. And then I woke someone like, hey, yo, where's he at? And I'm not even joking. He's like, dude, he's in the garage. And he's been in there for a while. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I don't know. He just started getting weird. So I told him just, go outside and go chill out. I'm like, okay. Walk into the garage, and it is like full of smoke. And like, I'm like, okay. Like he's probably just high. So I'm like, what's the big deal? But it was scary. It was like he was on acid. It was not like he was on weed or anything. Like it was weird because he's just walking around. His eyes were like this. He goes, bro, you're here, dude. I got so much to tell you. Probably laced, potentially, but no one else was acting like that though. Like even everyone there was like weirded out by him. So I don't know. It could have been laced, but he was like talking about like, I don't even know what he's talking about. He's like, yeah, I was looking outside and I could like see the stars and they were like moving with me. And I could like, and he was just talking out of his ass, like absolutely no fucking clue what was happening in his brain. Ever since that day, he kept doing more and more drugs. Now he's in prison for stabbing someone.
After this, Simon messaged a friend.
Nicest
to say
guy
that he no
ever.
longer felt safe.
Literally nicest guy I've ever met in jail for stabbing someone.
Staying with the couple. He was very scared of his environment and wanted to find somewhere else to stay. Though, sadly,
that doesn't sound like
such
weed.
safety
It might have
would
been
only
laced,
come a little
but
too
I don't know.
late.
Didn't you tell that
was
story
on a
before?
warm-
Yes, I told the story before, but a lot of people haven't heard it. That's why I asked, but yeah.
Summer's evening that all 3 of them were inside the small 1-bedroom flat, while Ben and Debbie were high as kites. It was at that moment that, while cooked out of his skull, Ben accused Simon of stealing money from him yet again. The confrontation sparked a fight between the 2 of them. Understandably quite scared, Debbie retreated to the bedroom while the other 2 skirmished. Eventually, a knife was brought into the fray. Now, Ben didn't specify where the knife came from, who had it first, or what type of knife it was. However, he did admit to one being present at the time. As a result, both parties in the fight sustained multiple defense wounds, though Simon sadly would take the brunt of the damage. The fight was so violent.
What kind of question is, did you help? Yeah? Like, what do you mean? Like, I don't think you guys understand. After that day, bro stopped talking to me. Like, I literally stopped being friends with him after that day, not by choice. He just started hanging out with weird people and wouldn't talk to me anymore. So, yeah, like, I mean, what am I supposed to do?
The walls of the utility room were spattered with blood from floor to ceiling. After relinquishing the knife, Ben violently finished Simon off by striking him over the head with a portable speaker. The assault was
Portable speakers? What got him? Damn, bro. People in the small town my husband is from used to robo-trip all the time. Yeah, I was in a group of friends that robo-tripped. They wanted me to do it with them. And I decided against it. And yeah, like there was four dudes just tripping balls on Robitussin. It was a very common thing back then. The heck is a robo-trip? Robitussin. Taking like a shitload of Robitussin and tripping balls.
Was both ferocious and unnecessary in the situation, and Simon was weak and posed very little threat to Ben. Put quite simply, Simon had been run ragged by drug
I have to say that. Don't do it.
Had restricted use of his right arm and was suffering from COPD, more commonly known as emphysema. This essentially meaning that he was easily exhausted and out of breath. Given all of this information, it is hard to paint a picture where he outwardly posed a threat towards Ben. In fact, those who saw Simon in the days before this incident happened did comment on how tired and unwell he looked. While Ben, on the other hand, was not only stronger but had a much more significant advantage, leaving this entire attack absolutely unwarranted. Sadly, this fight would ultimately end in Simon's death. He had defensive wounds on his hands and arms, and had 12 stab wounds on his chest, shoulders, and back. Once he had fallen down, Simon begged and screamed for help. But instead, Ben gouged both of his eyes out with his thumb.
What the Whoa! Whoa! Okay, bro. Bro! Too far, man. Stabbing him 12 times is one thing, but gouging his eyes out? Dude, that's some brutal shit. That's some like, wow. Come on, dude.
Before smashing his head with a speaker. So, you might be wondering what exactly happened to Debbie. Well, the sad truth is that she didn't actually care too much. Instead, she stayed right by Ben's side. After this sickening incident, the couple sold Simon's phone, shoplifted the hacksaw, and got to work on dismembering his body. Most
Just casually walking to dismember him. Okay.
of that final action was undertaken by Ben in the utility room, where he meticulously referenced an anatomy book in an effort to dismember the body systematically. Ben admitted he could
Jesus.
never have dismembered Simon without being severely under the influence, and he took copious amounts of drugs before doing it. Afterwards, he started a fire in their garden and tried to burn the body parts, starting with his head. This went on for several days, and in the meantime, neighbors noticed the putrid smell, which Ben and Debbie explained away by claiming it was a dead fox. But when the head wouldn't burn completely,
There's a dead fox in your room.
Ben decided to dump the remaining pieces in Walpole Lane. Now, this particular piece of information did not come out until February of 2024, which was 5 months after the murder. Skull fragments recovered from the area were positively identified as Simon Shodden, giving the authorities the final piece of the gruesome puzzle. Now, although Ben was the main instigator, Debbie was not free of guilt.
Nope.
After the attack and dismemberment, she
Bro,
helped
after killing someone and you're just casually walking around with a murderer, like happily? No.
cover up the crime scene and dispose of the body. Furthermore, she spent several days cleaning the blood-splattered utility room before Ben then repainted the walls. She
I'm sorry, the face is absolutely terrifying.
would also sell Simon's phone.
Like those eyes don't even look real. They look like they're just holes.
And help shoplift the saw and dispose of the body parts. So it's safe to say that neither of them showed any remorse towards Simon's murder. I mean, Ben even seemed proud about it, saying to Debbie in a police vehicle, "I'll look him straight in the eye and say, yeah, I'll do it again and again and again. If you let me go today, I would find another one and do it again." Drug
Damn.
dealers and pushers. Kill, decapitate, and eat the bastards. Tragically,
Damn, what a badass.
he also joked about how Simon had begged for his life and even urinated in his pants before he died. The pain and fear that Simon must have felt must have been absolutely unbearable.
Yeah, we need to put these people in like a cell with Mike Tyson or something like that, you know? Like we need dedicated criminal beaters. You know, like especially when it comes to people like this. I mean, mainly when it comes to people like where they admit it, it's 100% proven, and they're bragging about it. Just put them in a room with a professional boxer and just go ham. You know, like that'll be their job. You're just beating the shit out of people like him.
Of course, Ben would argue that he acted in self-defense and had no choice but to fight when confronted by
Lol.
Simon. However, Simon's poor physical health contradicted this claim. With mounting evidence and confessions from both Ben and Debbie, court proceedings began in May 2024 at Winchester Crown Court. The pair still seemed to show no genuine remorse, though they did offer empty words of regret to Simon's family, who were present at the trials. During this time, the judge rightly stated,
Imagine how like insulted you would feel in that situation.
"The violence you used was ferocious, unnecessary, wholly out of proportion. You were by far the stronger. He was of no threat to you." So, with their trials finally concluded, they were ultimately found guilty, but to differing degrees. Benjamin Atkins
Why?
would receive a life sentence with a minimum of 19 years for murdering his lodger and scattering his body parts across Bournemouth. Debbie, on the other hand, was sentenced to 4 years for perverting the course
Really?
of justice and preventing the burial of a corpse. The prosecution pointed out that, had she called the police when she saw the fight happening, Simon might even still be alive. This was a painful realization for Simon's own
She helped him dismember the body and burn it. What?
family members who were present during the time of their sentencing. His closest family member, that being his son Wesley, had his victim impact statement shared by the barrister. in which he said, "My father used drink and drugs to escape the battles in his mind. The lengths you've gone in destroying my dad are completely different. There was no opportunity for us to visit his body, to tell him we loved him, to kiss him goodbye. I just loved our time together. I was every bit my daddy's boy." The
God
judge
damn
stressed
it.
that this case was one of the largest and most complex in the history of Dorset
so
police,
sad, man.
with hundreds of officers from different forces involved in the search for Simon's remains. Simon Shodden leaves behind his children, his parents, and his sister to mourn his premature death. This is particularly saddening as he had little contact with many of them before passing away, leaving no opportunity for them to be reunited, and therefore exacerbating their loss. It is true,
Piggy didn't come here to cry, then why did you come here?
Simon did struggle with his mental health and substance abuse problems, though throughout he always expressed the intention of getting clean, not just for himself, but for those that he loved. By the way, it was a very notable feature of this case that all witnesses who knew Simon only spoke of his warmth and kindness towards others, and it seemed that no one had a bad word to say about him or his character.
Damn.
Instead, they expressed sadness that he had
No
been denied
one?
the opportunity to turn his life around.
He was that
and
good?
reconnect
God
with his
damn it.
family. Simon Shodden never deserved the brutal fate that befell him, all of which were at the hands of a violent and selfish
came here for
individual
the
and
gay.
his willing accomplice. The only comfort that his family can receive is that his murderers are now behind bars and unable
Yeah, one of them. The other one gets out in 4 years.
to take advantage of any other vulnerable individuals in the future.
For
Rest
4
in
years.
peace, Simon.
Yeah, for 4 years. Man, that's sad. Why'd you guys make me watch that?
Now it's time to walk away. I hope you enjoyed your stay. Did you laugh or cry or maybe subscribed? I'll thank you either way. You know I will miss you. I hope you return. Tell your friend or your mother to get me more views, please.